There we go. Hi, guys.
Yeah, we're live. Welcome, Mr. Host. Thank you very much. We have four hosts with us today. The
Hello.
CEO of MLC in Nottingham, with branches in, correct me if I'm wrong, Loughborough, Derby, Leicester, and Marseille, right? Marseille,
Yeah,
France.
and Nottingham.
Well, Nottingham is the main the main how you say, the main school, the main branch, the main whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
okay, so now, bef- uh, how did a guy who had lessons with Jim Shaping ended up owning a multi-million dollar music school?
It was the other way around. I owned the school first,
Ah, okay.
and so what happened was with Jim. I was teaching. The school was tiny at that time. I was teaching in a shop in Nottingham, and there was a guy called Malcolm Garrett who you may know. If
No,
if
never
you
heard of him.
don't if you don't you should check him out. Brilliant teacher. He teaches at the Birmingham Conservatoire. Anyhow, he phoned and said, "Look, I fix all the UK clinics for this guy called Jim Chapin. Have you heard of him?" Are you joking? Yeah, So he came along, did one clinic, and within a year, I suppose, maybe 2 years, it turned into him turning up for a week at a time. Because at that time in Jim's life, he was traveling the world constantly, going to see a lot of people, and he would come to Nottingham twice a year for either a week or two, because it got to the stage where so many people were wanting to study with him, and I occupied a lot of his time basically.
Cool.
So that it's that way around.
Okay.
I met Jim much earlier in my career, my life.
Nice. How long did you have lessons with him?
Um, 6 years.
Sick. Wow.
Yeah,
And always in Nottingham, or did you go to New York? Is it New York he was?
it was New York once, but not for a lesson. I went to Jim's son's house to find book two, but
Okay.
but no, it was in Nottingham or Frankfurt.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so it would either be at the Messe or at my little studio in Nottingham.
Cool.
Yeah, and
Nice.
it was always March and October religiously.
Okay. So March probably at the Messe, and then October in Nottingham.
Both were Nottingham, but
Oh, both.
it was always timed so that he would fly to the UK, do some time, then fly on to Germany to do the music Messe, and then of course, because I would go to the Messe as well, I'd have like double time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, that was
Cool. Nice.
20.
Also, I forgot to say, Paul has a series of books published by Alfred called Drum Set for Beginners. He
Yeah,
has the first one that's called just Drum Set for Beginners. Then you have Drum Set for Beginners Latin.
yeah,
And this year it's out, Drum Set for Beginners Jazz, right?
should be
Okay.
maybe next year now, but
All right.
it's getting there.
Okay. And how did that come about?
Um, they call it harassment now. No, what it was, because you go to these, how it is. You go to these shows that, Music Messe and NAM show and all of these things. You get to know people, and then if you keep turning up, they they kind of can't get rid of you. You keep
Tell me
turning
about
up.
it.
Yeah, you keep turning up and reminding them that you're still trying really hard. And then it was a friend of mine, Laura Hughes. She worked for Alfred UK. She was like, well, send a manuscript, let's have a look. And the rest is history.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Laura is the person you housed at Alfred to get your book published. That's what you're saying.
she was the introduction. She worked for Alfred, and then it was a guy called Andrew Higgins, who's the executive producer for my stuff in Alfred UK. He was the one that said, yeah, okay, let's try, let's go for it. And he's been really supportive actually. Yeah, really good.
And I guess it's done all right, because you're finished the third of the series, right?
Mostly, yeah. I was working on it this morning actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good actually. It's the best thing. I think I'm getting better each time I try and write something. I think I'm getting better at it. You know, I can spell my name now.
Cool. I'm not going to monopolize the conversation anymore. Guys, go ahead. Ask something.
Okay. Do you mind if I sweep in?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Can you hear my baby crying?
No.
Okay. She's not alone. I wanted to ask about the school, and when did you set it up originally, and how, I mean, this is probably a ridiculous question, but how did you grow it so massively? Like, I'd love to know a little bit more.
So, well, I mean, there was no grand plan in the beginning. It was just me teaching the drums, and this was pre-internet, you know. This was, so I got to the stage where I kind of thought, well, actually, maybe I need an assistant, and then and then there was a guy who owned the company. So this shop was a branch of many. And one of the owners said, well, look, you know, we're kind of reorganizing things. Would you like to take on the entire top floor? And would you consider, you know, managing it, for lack of better terms, guitar lessons, singing lessons, other things? And I always have, and still do, just say yes, and then kind of figure it out afterwards. If an opportunity lands at me like that, I'm going to take it, and then just figure it out. So that was the beginnings of that. And because there was no grand plan, I got a lot of things wrong. You know, cost an enormous amount of emotional energy, made a lot of mistakes, cost a lot of money. And then around 2015, actually had enough, wanted to close it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then my accountant said, well, actually, instead of closing it, why don't you sell it? And I had no idea that it was worth anything. So instead of selling all of it, I sold some of it. And then we ended up selling a bit more and a bit more. And then what that meant was that we could bring on very professional people. So a director of communications, director of events, director of education, director of operations, all grandiose titles, but people that had come from the corporate world, the commercial world, that had a real passion for music as well, which meant that they could bring things to the table that I had no experience of, no idea about. And now it is what it is, and it's growing, it's doing well, you know. So we are a team of 35 teachers looking after nearly 1,000 students.
Wow.
And you're still teaching?
A little bit. Yeah, I teach. I work with people that want to professionalize themselves, and by that I don't mean to say for 1 minute that they're not already professional. They are, but by professionalize I mean maybe they want a teaching qualification as opposed to just, you know, being able to play exceptionally well. Of course, most of them can already teach to a very high level, but by offering teaching qualifications, we can help them develop a portfolio career so they can teach in further education or higher education establishments within the UK. So I do a lot of that. And I have 4 private students, I still love doing it, and I want to, I've got one guy who's 14 and he can play. He's playing really well. Yeah, beginner, competent beginner, and a couple of other people who are pretty good actually. They're serious. They're serious about it. They love it. And then this larger cohort of undergraduates who are trying to get teaching qualifications.
How many are you doing? How many do you have for the teaching qualifications?
17.
Wow, it's a good number.
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing because people are finding that to get into teaching in schools, by teaching in schools, I mean actually a part of the main delivery team, not just teaching in a room in a school, maybe a lunchtime lesson or whatever. So helping deliver a BTEC or a music practitioner, something of this. So level 3, level 4, level 6, they need the same qualifications that their other colleagues and peers would to teach maths or physics or whatever. They need to basically be teachers. That's not true of every organization in the country, but it's growing.
Cool.
Mark?
So I would like to come away from the business thing and ask you about your experiences with Jim, because I studied with him several times over the years, obviously on the Marlow technique. But I wondered, did you do anything else with him? Did you have a look at the Advanced Techniques book? And was there kind of one overarching takeaway you had from that experience?
The best time I had with Jim was always eating food.
Okay.
Yeah, because you probably experienced this yourself. He'd turn up to either give a clinic or to teach, and then he'd go.
Yeah.
Or afterwards, you kind of go somewhere and eat. And it was during those times when he'd start telling stories, and reminiscing and talking about inspiration for different things, whether it was the first book or the second book, or even the third book for that matter.
Is there a third book?
There's an idea of it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. But yeah, so he would, and so my biggest takeaway were the stories. He was, one in particular, it was October 2001. So 9/11 had just happened, and we were sat in a Chinese restaurant in Nottingham. Of course we were, and we were. He was reminiscing about New York, so he'd grown up during the Depression. He got drafted in the army, did the Second World War towards the end of the war, came out of the army, had a good career as a professional musician, but his career as a teacher took off because nobody believed that book one was possible. So he actually would carry a pad, a pair of sticks, and a copy of book one everywhere and would illustrate it. So he began to get known as a teacher, more as a player. And then, of course, he was talking about, literally the week that the Beatles turned up and played at the Ed Sullivan Theatre, and watching the towers being built. And then, of course, the towers had just come down. And he was kind of just giving us this commentary of 20th century New York. And I was thinking, wow, this guy was in the middle of all of it. And for me, they were much better, much stronger memories than the lessons, because you can probably remember yourself that he would topic hop like some, you'd be doing one thing and then he'd say, did I tell you about them? Yeah. And let me tell you about this, and have I shown you this, and give me, and and show me your hands always, and and it's like, I remember coming out of my first lesson and Malcolm said, well, how was it? I was like, I don't know. I remember my face was burning because I was concentrating so hard, and so I thought, well, I've got to go back, I've got to try again. Yeah. And that was it. So yeah, just the stories. Yeah, we went through the book. He taught me how to play brushes as well.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
You play traditional grip or
Not very well.
no?
I mean, I can, but I'm just not very good at it. I don't mind admitting that. I'm a rocker, you know. I'm a frustrated rock star.
Just
Aren't we all, Paul? Aren't we all?
I just out of curiosity, because I had some brush lessons with Pete Cater a while back. and I'm not a brush player really, but I found it much easier with traditional. I can't play brushes at all with matched. It doesn't feel right. I wondered if you had is that the same thing, or do you all find that?
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, you see.
It's not right.
No, it's interesting. It's like a go-to posture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could never get I'm left-handed, so I could never get the quarter note push going. It just doesn't work like anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because Jim didn't like to teach traditional.
Right.
You know, he thought it was a bygone thing, you know, because people needed to play louder. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, brushes is one of those though, for me. I'd love to do more of it, but you know, that's like practice session 4010 maybe. But that's the nice thing about what we do, isn't it? There's for me at least, I'm not in any hurry. I have no need to. I'm not worried about what the next person is doing. I'm mindful of where, you know, it's all moving and going toward. Very mindful, but I think I'm a little bit beyond now worrying. I'm trying to actually regain my hobby for myself.
Yeah.
You know, like my someone's gonna do a study on this and rip me apart, but like my child self, you know, I would run home from school to want to play the drums. Whereas now I just give all that energy and time and knowledge and all the rest of it to other people, which is great. It's a privilege, it's a pleasure. But I've lost my hobby.
Now you run from drums to go home.
Yeah. No, it's not. We're not quite there yet. It is a love thing, but we're not quite at that level yet.
You were talking about Jim piling up stuff on other stuff. I remember my first experience with Jim was he went to MI for a clinic. The clinics at MI were from 6:30 in the evening till 8 p.m., right? He turned up at 1:30 in the afternoon, right? And people didn't know what to do with him because they were expecting him to arrive around 6 p.m. or something, right? But he turned up at 1:30, and so they found a room, and we have a CCTV where they used to tell to the students what was happening. So they put on the TV saying Jim is in room whatever, and he's going to be doing an open counseling. Needless to say that all drum students left whatever they were doing and went to this room. So there were people on the corridors and trying to pick into the room.
Yeah.
And obviously he always had something to tell, right? So by 7 p.m., they had to drag him out of this room into the auditorium where he was going to do the clinic. And he already walked on stage with a pad in his hand and a stick talking about the motion and stuff like that. I don't remember seeing him breathing at all. It seemed that he was speaking, nonstop. By 11 p.m., people turn on the lights and will say, "Let's go home, let's go home." So he spent almost 12 hours through at MI giving a clinic.
Somebody should write a book about him,
Well, I think, yeah. Or nowadays, a documentary would be much more interesting.
Can you imagine? I mean, how many thousands of people have got slightly different stories?
Yeah.
And actually, I don't care if I'm sure they are true, but I don't care if they're not true.
It doesn't matter anymore.
There's this practice pad here. you probably can't see it, but there's a coffee cup shaped stain from where he put his coffee cup on there when he was teaching. I remember it was in Colin Walway's place in Croydon, and I sort of sat next to him, and all of a sudden his coffee cup just, and it came on, and it was a brand new pad at the time. Still got it.
Yeah.
No, it's a relic now.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Worth anything.
Kira?
I had a question. It's probably maybe a bit geeky, maybe a bit boring, but it's about with the school. How did you go about? Did you put much thought into like the syllabus? Like for me, I think, oh goodness me, there's so much. What a minefield. What was your approach?
So it's probably, whatever I say, it's Marmite, isn't it? You know, so some people will like it, some people won't, and that's okay. We have a framework that we work within. By that I mean there's certain things at certain stages that we think you should know, but the rest of it is tailor-made to the individual. So I think our success in part is due to the fact that I know that we're teaching a lot of people, but actually most of it is still one-to-one. So that gives us an opportunity to really develop the relationship with the student, which is, I'm sure, what we all do, you know, which means then we can actually, I think anyway, it's really important that the student comes away learning what they want to learn, coupled with being enlightened by new things. Because obviously it's our job to introduce them to the art form, to the history, to new stuff, new players, absolutely. But if we don't give them what they want, they might not come back. Because we have an ethical, thing to stick to, a policy to stick to, but we also have a commercial need. We all need to earn a living. So if we don't listen to our customers, they won't come back.
Yeah.
Isn't that tough to? I totally agree with that. But having so many students, is that tough to keep a track of, you know, where people are at, or is it just kind of down to each individual tutor and that's their responsibility and that's kind of their thing?
So we have we've through our growing pains, let's say, you know, we've developed all kinds of things like operations manuals, team training, CPD stuff, and we have these team meetings, and we essentially work with our team of teachers to help them manage the students, you know, the students' progression, and also, you know, now as well with mental health issues, you know, well-being as well. So it's broader than that. But the short answer is we have things in place where we track their progress on a whole raft of KPIs in place. It's quite a, you know, it's quite an animal now, you know. So we're not just tracking you know, how well a person's doing. We're actually, you know, we've gone further. We're tracking how well that room's doing, for example, you know, like what could that room be used a different way at a different time, and all of that stuff. So and then with the students in mind, actually throwing it back to the students and saying, well, you're doing really well. Do you on the drums, let's say, why don't you next week, why don't you have a lesson with one of our bass teachers? And you know, the rhythm section thing going on, or do you want to learn some recording, or do you want to learn basic video editing, or stuff that you need, that we all need now, even if you're a hobbyist. In fact, you know, I would argue if you're a hobbyist, you've probably got more time to make your Instagram and your social feed look far better than mine, because I'm too busy trying to do other things, you know. So yeah, so our suite of stuff that we do is diverse, but it's always student focused, always.
Cool. Um, different from Kira, I have a more business-like question. Uh, how how can I put it in a way that I will understand?
Could be waiting for
We need a poke for that.
But do you feel more? No offense here, and this is when people are going to offend other people. But do you feel more nowadays like a drummer or like a businessman?
Both.
Okay.
You remember a few minutes ago I said I was trying to get my hobby back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
My memory's not that bad. I can remember that.
yeah, no, but what I mean is that was a conscious decision. That was really
Okay.
important. Because if I stop playing for me, then why bother?
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean to say that, you see, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, what would you do if you wasn't a professional drummer? I'd probably, because I'm, young, male and stupid, I'd probably be quite defensive, probably upset, and probably a little bit frightened. Like, what do you, like, I failed? What are you talking about? Right? Whereas now, and I'm not tempting fate here, I wouldn't mind. I'd love to train as a chef. I would love to train as a tailor. I would love to learn how to sail a boat. Like, life is so rich. I don't need to be a professional player all of my life. And I'll go a step further. I'm not a professional player. I don't earn my living by playing gigs or doing recordings. I work in music education. And to finish that, I love playing the drums. But that gives me a lot of peace. Do you see what I mean? That kind of summary of my I am my own Venn diagram. I love to teach. Of course I do. I'm one of those rare nutcases that actually loves going to work because I love the people I work with and I love the job that I've got.
Yeah.
And I play a bit and, great. But actually, genuinely, I'm playing more now than I was 5 years ago.
Cool.
I wonder just.
So, yeah.
So I wonder just on that point, because what you said there rang a few bells with me. So I'm also a therapist. I trained as a therapist about 10 years ago, and I actually spent a period where I stopped playing drums completely, and just focused on that. And I wondered, one of the things that I found it quite difficult to let the idea go that I was a professional drummer. I found quite hard. And kind of, how can I put this? Like, now I'm really, really happy to describe myself as a drum teacher. It doesn't feel like I've failed, if you see what I mean. But it was. I wonder whether you had anything like that, or whether you had any thoughts like that, or any advice for anybody going through that. Maybe. I'm sure that happens.
I think it's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because whether people will admit it or not, that's actually probably where most of us are at.
Right.
Yeah. Professionally and emotionally. I think to have a healthy career in 21st century in music, probably a large proportion, is going to be in the delivery or the curation of education.
Yeah.
I think if anyone says otherwise, they're either probably a rock star or hoping, dreaming, and
or delusional.
Well, fine. I'll go with them. Right. So, so I think probably the key is, and we're advocating this at MLC with our team and our very sort of serious students, is that you should know and have an open heart to the fact that you're probably going to need to have a portfolio career. So And by that, I mean, there's no shame whatsoever, is there, in having 3 or 4 jobs if it means you can keep your passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, come on.
no, because I wondered how you feel about what I'm about to say, is that if you don't enjoy it anymore, well, then why bother?
Well, yeah, exactly. So I had an instance a couple of years ago where I was mentoring some students, and one of the first things I would do is sit down and explain kind of the reality of where everything's at, and it was quite shocking for some of them. But I think useful in the long run to kind of snap them out of the, you know, you can be in a band, but the chances of you making enough money to live off of it are. So, yeah.
But why? But why? Why? Certainly, given the current state of the world, why do you need to make a living from it in order for the entire pursuit to be a success?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's that. If younger people, because everyone's probably younger than me, could. Okay. I forgot. My point is, you see, I was trying to do you a favor, man. No, people might relax, might they, and have a better time doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and this social media is a funny place to exist. I mean, people are crying out left, right, and centre for likes and comments, and please like my stuff, and well, yeah.
Well, it makes you feel good, right?
Yeah.
You play a crash cymbal and everybody will say, wow, that's amazing. You want to play more crash cymbals so people will say that you're amazing.
If that's important to you, for them to say that you're amazing.
Well, but that's the thing. That I think it's important to most people who live out of the social media thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think people take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great tool, but it's not life.
Yeah, it's like I get it, like, it's like a validation, I suppose, isn't it? But in the end, I totally agree with what you're saying, Paul. It's like, you can just be playing and enjoy it, and also be doing this as a job, and this. And what's the, it seems like something that you can't talk about or admit or go there.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice to be talking about it. And for Instagram, some people do just need to lighten up, and
Well,
you're never going to be, you are you, and that's your power. Leave it,
Yeah.
With
No.
people who compete and stuff, and I don't know.
You mean
it's
trying to copy you? Sorry, Paul, I talked over you there, mate. I do watch Kira's Instagram quite regularly, and sometimes she comes out with stuff, and I'm like, oh, I've got to go and practice more now. But in a positive way. Anyway, sorry.
There really are interesting points that we're all talking about, because if you can, if you can help someone have a nicer time, then they're probably going to play for longer.
Yeah.
And stay with us for longer.
And about that, having a nicer time, I know your teaching at the moment is a little bit more. I mean, what I mean by more qualified is because you're teaching people to become qualified teachers, right? Yeah. But I'm talking about if you would teach a beginner, do you have expectations for that person, or it's about them having a great time?
It's about them having a great time, and about us building a relationship of trust, and that student will then want to practice.
Okay.
Like, for example, I don't teach rudiments. I help people understand why they're really important, and I help people tidy them up. But I'm not gonna I'm not going to teach someone a single stroke roll. I will refine it with them and show them how to use it and where to use it. But I'm not going to, it's called a flipped learning model, where you actually set the problem and then review the result rather than spend all of your time doing it with them. It's not for everyone. I fully realize that. But there has to be a point, of course, where we have to refine everyone's playing and introduce them to the art form. Of course we do. But that's not what they come to us for in the beginning. If they're a beginner, they will have a hero and they will want to rock or swing like that hero. And then it's our job to curate that journey and help them, enlighten them, help them have a nice time.
Next question. So, how do you deal with if you ever have a pupil who wants to do a certain thing, they're young, and then their parents have a different idea and want them to study something else, but it's still drumming, but they're like more strict maybe, and the kid just wants to walk out. How do you handle that?
So this is another really interesting point, because we face this a lot at work, in that there is a three-way relationship here, isn't there? Because often for us, the person paying for our time is not the person receiving our knowledge. So they haven't got the direct relationship. So how I deal with that, it's communication. I think it's just having a chat with a parent or guardian and saying, well, this is what we're doing, this is what path we're on, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're luckily in a position where we've got unsupportive parents of what I or we are trying to teach. But we do put a lot of energy into communication and events, but yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question, but the answer would be just careful communication, I think.
Yeah.
Because again, if you lose that student, it will affect your income immediately, won't it?
Yeah.
These are tricky balancing acts, and I don't think it's not the public's responsibility or job to worry about us in that sense, but that's what we have to face, isn't it? That's our reality. You lose 2 students, well, you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
You gain 2 students, you're going to feel that. So, I don't know. We're touching on some really nice things today, really good things. Because is it about how good your chops are, or is it about how good your teaching philosophy is?
I think it's about how good your teaching philosophy is, because the chops, to be honest, is the easiest to beat.
Yeah, everybody can play, especially these days.
Exactly. True.
So I have, I think how long we got left? About 10 minutes, I think. Does that look right?
I don't know. I'm not controlling that, sir.
I think so, yeah. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to try and phrase it carefully, because it might come across as slightly more controversial than it's meant to.
All right.
So we talked about, and it's not about who's the oldest.
I am the oldest. Let's settle that. I'm the oldest.
We talked about making a career in music, and basically nowadays you're going to have some educating factor in there.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a danger of creating a circular industry where you've got people teaching people to be teachers and nothing else?
It's a big question. It's a good question. In 2018, 2019, 80% of the British economy, 80, was services.
Okay.
So that's all we do anyway. And I think we should all professionalize and charge properly for it, because we're worth it.
Yeah.
And you're probably, in fact, you probably are right. The circular motion of which you describe is probably the reality.
Okay.
Because I could sign up for lessons with all of you and learn something completely different and of value. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely.
I think what I meant was, sorry, if you just bear with me, I'll give you an example in your industry. So you will have seen this on Facebook, right? So there's lots and lots of digital marketing trainers teaching people to do digital marketing.
Yep.
And I went to a course years ago, because I used to do a lot of public speaking, doing hypnosis and stuff like that. And it was about how to make money doing public speaking. And the way you make money doing public speaking is you teach other people to do public speaking.
Yeah.
That's no, I'm not suggesting it's good or bad. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that happening with professional drummers, that you've got a bunch of professional drummers teaching another bunch of professional drummers to be teachers rather than artists, if you see what I mean.
I think, yeah, I think the journey of becoming an artist is self-discovery. So you curate that, don't you? You manage that, you mentor it, you enable it. And for that, we need to have taught them some fundamental building block on which they can grow. Yeah. So for me, there's two different roles. But yes, I think I'm trying to formulate an answer that's not political. I'm not trying to be careful. I'm actually really thinking about.
Because it's a bleeding awkward question, but
yeah, no, because it's a brilliant question, because I believe that we should be working with experienced practitioners in mainstream education. So if you're teaching music at Somewhereville Comprehensive, then they should be getting people like us in, because we bring real world experience, and we'll probably relate to the kids a little bit more. Controversial, don't know, maybe not, don't know. But for us all as practitioners to have the proper respect that I think we're all worth, we should be equally qualified. We shouldn't be the poor person in the room, intellectually or financially.
Yeah.
But so then that takes me on to the next point, where all these pro drummers are teaching people how to teach. Well, that should be a reality switch for everyone who's trying to get into the industry, is that, guess what? That's what you're going to have to do. Because there's no gig that's going to pay you consistently 25 years, 30 years, other than people wanting to gain more knowledge for even if it's just knowledge for themselves, to just be a proficient hobbyist just because they love it. Yeah. But the picture that you paint, for me at least, is the reality. Everyone's a teacher, everyone's done a DVD, everyone's done a book, everyone, yeah, great. So then you're in this world of, well, whose is best or better? Don't know.
It's not Felipe's then, I think.
Well, it's not mine.
But, not mine either, for sure.
No, but I mean, well, what do you guys think? I mean, because I'm not like an oracle on this stuff. I obviously work in education in the private sector. We are not government funded. We stand or fall by whether people like it or not. So what do you think?
What do you think, Kira?
Well, I think that yeah, people who have an idea about, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to play drums all the time for bands or whatever. I just think, yeah, it's not real. It's not. I don't know what that's based on. It's not. It needs to be updated. Totally agree with that, because you know, all the drummers I see on Instagram or wherever, and they've got an amazing gig, they're still teaching. There's never a time that they're not, you know, they have to do something else. They have to. So I just think, yeah, I think that needs to change the conversation.
Why is that, do you think? Like, let me can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Why do you three teach?
I love it, basically.
You love what? The process, the seeing individuals grow?
The whole thing, the process, the thinking about the lessons, coming up with what now is my book, the progression. Somebody who comes to to my studio who never held a sticks in their hands before, after a couple of months being able to play well, and the happiness and the satisfaction they get from being able to play a tune, any tune actually. You know, the whole thing. I love teaching. I never thought I would, but since the first day I started, I never stopped teaching.
Kira, what about you?
I just love drums, and I think if I can introduce someone to playing drums and loving drums, it's a lovely feeling. I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, I bloody love my drums, and so it's nice to work, you know, and to teach and to show someone why it's great. I'm hopefully I'm not sounding like I'm pushing, this is why you should love them, but yeah, to see someone's progression and see someone's face where they could actually play a beat is great. And it's consistent. It's, as you were saying about, you know, financial head, it's consistent money. I can plan stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it makes
You're
sense.
gonna buy a new snare drum.
Yeah.
It's really important, you know. I mean, if I can come back to that in a moment, because I mean, Mark, what about you? You say.
So hopefully this doesn't sound like a horribly pretentious answer, but so I did it for a long time, and I never really knew why I did it. And actually there was a period where I didn't like it that much. And then I had some business coaching when I started training as a therapist. And the guy that I worked with, his name's Andrew Horder, and his whole thing is about he calls it joyful genius, which sounds awfully Disney, but it's about finding out the thread that joins everything you do and then what people pay you for. And what people pay me for is mastery through simplicity. So everything I do is about showing you how to get very good at something by making it simple. And that's my, he calls it a genius statement, and it just goes through every single thing I do. I mean, I've used the drums I used to work for a kids company. Do you remember them?
Say that again. I heard a siren then, didn't you?
Kids company.
Oh, yeah.
I used to work for them doing anxiety management for abused teenagers using the drum set. But I use it to teach how the mind works. So to me, it's all this kind of mesh of things that kind of come together in, you know, that's mastery through simplicity. It's just an expression of who I am, like completely natural. So I don't really feel like I've got any choice in the matter, basically. I've got to do it. So yeah, there you go.
It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? Because there's a genuine passion for not only the instrument, but for people as well.
Yeah.
You know, and also we should be really, maybe this is another conversation for another day, but we should be really open and honest about the fact that, and this is my sort of personal professional belief, is that we should not only be the best that we can be, but have the credentials that says we're as good as we are, so that we can earn the same living as anyone else. And I don't mean rock star stuff. I mean, you know, we shouldn't be struggling.
No.
I'm not saying we are, but we should have the ability to plan, to take a holiday, to do what other people do, and
go to the NAMM show every year.
yeah.
Billy Cobham camps.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a little bit hard at the moment because they're not happening.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Should we do one more question?
Okay, sorry. I
No,
wanted
no,
to travel on. Sorry about that.
It's excellent. Should we give Kira the last one, Felipe?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
All right, drum roll.
Oh God.
Should it be a good one? No pressure.
I'm happy. I was just going to ask you about if you play in any bands and if that's something you do. It sounds like you're just kind of getting back into just love.
Yeah. So a friend of mine called Lee Wraith, you should check him out as a guitar player. He's like the Ibanez product demonstrator. He and I have known each other since we were kids, but he asked me to play on his album a couple of years ago called Awakening, which was just brilliant, just great to do. For me, that was my kind of rock star moment, you know, that was it. I was playing again. For me, I was just playing, you know. We've just started recording again, another one. So that's it. Playing live, no, not at the moment. Obviously not at the moment, but not before this. Yeah, I would love to, but I have decided that I would love to do anything if it's emotionally just the right thing to do without sounding pretentious. What I mean is that, again, another reality check, that there's no money, is there, for live music on our level? So don't try and hire me. Just ask me to come along and play. That's the decision I've made, because if you ask me for a professional fee and I tell you how much that professional fee is, you're not going to hire me.
Yeah.
Please, on the other hand, please don't offer me 20, 30, 50, 80 quid. I'd just rather turn up and play. I hope that doesn't sound controversial, but do you know what I mean? Like,
But I understand perfectly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand perfectly.
dare I say it? I think I'm worth more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So,
It's different realities. You know, I know people who will go and play for 30 pounds because they actually need it. You know,
yeah.
they have to. For example, these people right now are suffering a lot because of the whole lockdown thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I understand your feeling because I remember I was 39 and I went to play at this place called Jazz After Dark in Soho, which is the worst place in the world. So never go there to play or watch a gig. And
Right.
and I was playing 3 1-hour sets on a Friday night for 35 pounds.
Ah,
Yeah.
no.
And
It's not minimum wage, is it?
yeah, and then it was my epiphany, right? When I was like, next year, I'm going to be 40, and I really don't want to be 60, depending on these gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I woke up one morning. In fact, I woke up twice. I woke up in a field in the middle of the dark, getting rained on, and I thought, maybe something's got to change. So then,
We've still
then
drums now, haven't we?
yeah. When I woke up again, same day, a bit later, I was kind of like, okay, I have been playing car wash myself badly for 20 years. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'd done one wedding gig too many. I'd done one local pub too many. I wasn't playing for me anymore.
Yeah.
And this is when you lose your passion.
Yeah, and I had,
I know.
but
Me too.
yeah, and I think I say this to people. You know, not many, because no one's no one's interested in listening. But
Be honest, no one is worth telling. Not many is worth telling.
no, but this whole thing is a love affair, right? It's not a job, is it?
No.
You don't clock off. You don't switch off. You know.
That's why I say I never worked in my life. Never had a job.
No, but because my point is this: because it's a love affair, it has the power to hurt you.
Especially because love affairs usually do.
That's my point. So, like any relationship, you need to look after it, manage it, you know, or feed it, all that. But you need a break. I'm not one of these, you know, I don't advocate, you know, oh, I've got to go and practice 8 hours tomorrow. No. I've got 4,000 things to do tomorrow. And I will play the drums because I love it.
I think we'll, on that high note, that's an excellent place to end it there. Thanks so much, Paul. That was amazing, mate.
Thank you all.
Thank
you.
Love that.
I'm going to stop recording, but hang around. So I'm going to cut it off now.
Well, thank you all very much. Loved it.
Pleasure.